Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Nonprofit Show. One of our faves is back with us today, Dana Scurlock, Director of Recruitment at our friends over at Staffing Boutique, talking about the realities and the permanency of working from home. And that this isn't just like a COVID era gig, that this is actually something that has become a part of our work environment. So we're going to talk about from the staffing, perspective and HR, what this might look like. I'm really excited, Dana, to have this conversation with you.
I
Welcome.
am too. It's a hot issue, so it'll be
Yeah.
good.
It really is. I know you're from New York City. I read the New York Times every day. I start my day with that. And,
Wow.
and I always think of like Jamie Dimon is like harping all the time, get back to the office. And if you don't get back to the office, you're fired. And I always think to myself, you know, how is this impacting their business? And I think it's going to be fun to have this conversation. I really, really do. It's also really a lot of fun. Our amazing presenting sponsors. They include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, again, our friends over at Staffing Boutique, JMT Consulting, Interim Executives Academy, Your Part-Time Controller, and Fundraisers Friday. I'm Julia C. Patrick, CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy. More importantly, Dana Scurlock is here with us, as I mentioned, Director of Recruitment, Staffing Boutique at Staffing Boutique. And you can learn more about their team at Staffing Boutique at staffingboutique.org. Before we get going, your business is so unique. And I wish you would spend just a little bit of time sharing with us what Staffing Boutique does and what you're doing now, because things change so much with the economy and labor. Give us a snapshot of what's cooking with you all right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Julia, for another lovely introduction. It's always a pleasure to be here with you and talking about issues within the nonprofit sector. And, from my corner of the world, that's going to be in recruitment,
Mhm.
since I am the director of recruitment at Staffing Boutique. We are a smaller size, like we're under 10 staff members, third party recruiting firm. And we work exclusively with nonprofit organizations. So all of our clients are nonprofits. Now, that includes any organization that has its 501c3 status, which is sort
Mhm.
of the the federal indication that they are a nonprofit and they do not pay taxes. And so that's going to include what we think of as nonprofits colloquially, like, United Way or a soup kitchen, a homeless shelter.
Mhm.
Those are things that are very obvious to people that are nonprofits. But it also includes things like museums, colleges, universities. All of
Mhm.
those fall under the nonprofit umbrella as well. And so we've got a variety of clients on our roster, and it's growing all the time. And so we've got small nonprofits that, I mean, there's some family foundations that only have one or two people that work for them, all the way up through the huge national organizations that have chapters all over the country. We
Mhm.
even work with international organizations that have offices abroad and here in the States. So it really varies. But the through line is that it's all with nonprofit organizations, and so I think that's what makes us unique, as you were mentioning earlier, because there's just not as many staffing firms that focus on it, and within the staffing industry, you've got the big corporate funding or recruiting firms.
Mhm.
They may work with nonprofits occasionally, but they don't specialize in it. And so if
Mhm.
you're a nonprofit and you're looking for assistance with a nonprofit specific position, such as development, fundraising, marketing for a nonprofit, programmatic work, those types of things, I think you're better off going through an agency like ours that specializes in nonprofits. So that's what kind of sets us apart. We do actually provide temporary staffing, which is going to be on an hourly basis, and it's for a finite amount of time for projects. We also have, direct hire or headhunting direct hire permanent
Mhm.
placements as well. And so we really kind of work with the client. That's something we pride ourselves on, is that we don't kind of just send candidates willy nilly. We
Mhm.
really partner with the organization to identify what their needs are, how and why what they've done hasn't worked yet, and then go out into the job market and identify candidates on their behalf. And our goal is to make long term opportunities. Even for temp, we want to make introductions that make sense so that the assignment goes well, but also if there are longer term opportunities, that candidate can end up assisting the organization with that as well. And especially for direct hire work, you want to make a match between an organization and an individual, that they can have a long-term relationship. We don't want to place people and then in 6 months they're looking for a new position. We want to really identify what the candidate's career goals are and place them within an organization for whom the organization's needs and the candidate's needs career-wise really match up. And so we really look at ourselves as consultants in that way too. Um, but we're very lean, we're very flexible. Like, the good thing about being a smaller firm is that as clients have different needs, we're able to pivot very quickly.
Right.
And we're able to provide that really close customer service because we're not as large as one of the, I've worked for those types of recruiting firms before too, that are very siloed, and you've got hundreds of recruiters working there, and it is totally a valid part of that industry and an important part. It's just a little bit different than what we do here at Staffing Boutique. So
Well,
yeah, that's what we do. It's
I
exciting.
I love it, and I appreciate this nuanced approach, because so often I've got to believe in the nonprofit sector, people are calling you when it's a crisis. That they're like, oh my gosh, we need extra, bodies, or we need this or that. And it's not like they've had the luxury of planning out, being more thoughtful, and it's just got to be more of like a response, quick response environment for you.
Mhm.
And I mean, I don't know if that's the case, but it just seems to me like um, it's probably
It
somewhat of a
absolutely
reality.
can be. Sometimes we're their last call. Any organization or company, sometimes a staffing firm is the last resort. And then they end up realizing from there how easier it could have been had they called earlier. And so the next time it comes up, clients are more familiar with what we do. And then, because it also just depends on the hiring manager. Like,
Yeah,
some hiring managers have never worked with a firm before because that's just not been their path in their career. They just haven't had to. They haven't come in contact with it. So it's also just about educating the clients, like, these are options for you. And
right.
as people take different management positions, they may not even know what opportunities there are out there, to get assistance with staffing. So it's good also for platforms like this that you have, that disseminates this type of information, not just about recruiting, but other things within the sector, because it helps get that information out there so that all organizations and all leaders can have these types of, like, fast tracks to
Right.
assistance to run more efficiently.
Well, and things are moving fast. I mean, especially right now in the last, since the first of the year,
Hmm.
things have changed dramatically. They are continuing to change. And so that's why we wanted to talk about this and really kind of talk about this work from home, work from anywhere. I feel like this was a crisis move during the pandemic that has had an unexpected shift in how we're thinking about our teams and how they work. And the reality is, I think a lot of nonprofits are finding out that they can save a heck of a lot of money when they don't have to fill an office. They don't have that overhead. When we were chatting in the green room, it's like everything from paper clips to desks to, the things that are going on, parking. I could go on and on and on. You get this work from home environment. What are you seeing?
I couldn't agree with you more that it definitely has been a result of the pandemic, and specifically the sort of emergency need to continue with business as usual without being able to go into the office. And so since 2020, we have seen such an influx of both hybrided positions, meaning they're partly work from home and partly in office, and an influx of 100% remote roles.
Yeah.
Particularly after the pandemic, I would say the first, like, 3 years till 2023, so many remote jobs came in, like, so many things that were projects you could do from home, or a full-time job that was mostly remote, and maybe you went into the office a couple times a month. And there were a lot of these different options, and clients, I think, were initiating that. Clients meaning the nonprofit organizations or the hiring entities, they were initiating a lot of that based on the market, and the fact that candidates were requiring that to be able to feel comfortable to work. A lot of people had kids, elderly people working, living in their homes with them. They couldn't afford, health wise, to go out and work and bring something home. Now I feel like it's not as much in the public eye. I don't think there's as many fatalities due to cold and
Mhm.
flu season as there was in the past, like previous 3 to 4 years. And certainly COVID is more manageable now. I think that there's been a slow shift, especially in the past year, to get people back into the office, just like you're describing in the New York Times.
Yeah.
I think that people have
Yeah.
realized that probably where we need to be is in the middle.
Mhm.
Totally understandable that during the pandemic everything moved remote, and I think what happened is there's 100% of the work that needed to get done, and with working from home I think we all were getting like 80% of it done, and
Okay.
that was like good enough for those like 2 or 3 years. I think now, like the articles you're reading in the Times, people are realizing there's that last 20% that is still kind of missing when I have everyone in my staff working from home.
Mhm.
So how do we meet in the middle? Because I'm not a fortune teller, but Dana, personally, like outside of business, I really think the culture has shifted to where people are not going to go 100% in the office
Mhm.
again, like candidates.
Mhm.
Everyone had the opportunity to work from home during the pandemic and realized how much work of that 80% could actually be done from home, how much it was able to save them money on commuting. So some people, let's say you're making $50,000 a year in Milwaukee, and then next year you have to come back to the office. That's $5,000 possibly in gas, parking, maintenance to your car. Those little incidentals, sometimes they're not even built into the budgets anymore of the
No.
salaries, because the cost of living has changed with the way that we work and that we're working remotely. So
Right.
it's really, really interesting. I think it's slightly tricky for organizations now because they're fighting against sort of candidate expectations, which are, I want the best work life balance possible, I want to work from home as much as possible, I want
Mhm.
flexible hours. These are the things that, we as workers should be fighting for, and businesses, whether they're nonprofit or corporate, should be able to provide. And
Mhm.
those are the expectations that a lot of candidates are bringing into searches that they're doing, interviews that they're going on, organizations that they're speaking with. And I think that organizations are willing to meet them with those demands and those needs. I think that there's probably a middle ground where there's a little bit of in office interaction and work and camaraderie and meetings and
Yeah.
ideas and things that are getting lost in the shuffle because everybody's working from home. What
Mhm.
I've seen a lot of organizations do that I thought was smart to try out was they have, let's say you work from home 3 to 4 days a week, but there's one day a week everyone comes in on the same day. And I think
Yeah.
that overlap was what we were missing before, is that people were working from home and some people were coming into the office, but it was
Uh-huh.
haphazard when people were coming in what
Right.
days, and so nobody was overlapping with each other. And I
Right.
think that's what we were missing, is the, even if it's just once or twice a week, it doesn't have to be, we've realized it doesn't have to be every day, that there's actually a lot of time lost when it's the whole staff in and people are having
Yeah.
coffee conversations and hanging out by the desk. I know when I
Mhm.
was in the office, you go to the fax machine, you go to the copy, or you end up
Yeah.
having a 15-minute conversation with
Sure.
everyone along the way, whether
Yeah.
it's about work and then it turns into personal, or it starts as personal and then it ends up being
Yeah.
about something that we emailed about. So, and those conversations are really useful. A lot of good stuff comes out of those.
Yeah.
And so I think the question is, how do we capture the good moments in the office that we need, that we're
Mhm.
missing, without sacrificing the time back that we've gotten from the work from home options? And I think
Right.
everybody is struggling with that and traversing how do we balance that.
Right. Dana, is your experience in the temp world and in a permanent placement just the sense that people want to work from home, or are you seeing candidates say, I work better from home, like I am getting more done? Because I feel like that's been an issue as well, where people are like, holy moly, the productivity has gone up in certain ways because your comment about the interruptions and the interpersonal or whatever, for whatever reason, it kind of shifts things and people can, be more laser focused. Do you see that at all, or is that not really?
Yeah, I think depending on the personality type, I would say the majority of candidates that I've spoken to say that they enjoy working from home and want to continue working from home at least
Interesting.
part of the time. I think
Okay.
everybody has enjoyed having some flexibility with their schedule. I think being trusted by an organization or a company to work autonomously from home also feels good because
Mm,
it means that they value what you do, they trust you as an adult to take care of it, and that you're going to be able to deliver on these requirements without having somebody in the office like to monitor you. I think people have really enjoyed that autonomy,
mhm,
and it's made them feel more responsible for their own time.
mhm,
And so that has increased productivity because people, I think, have less distractions from the office, less
mhm.
time that they have to spend commuting. Like you can get up and
Yeah,
be working at 9 o'clock rather than walking in at 8:45 and you have to put your stuff down. You got to put your kid.
yeah,
Rains. I'm in New York, so it's rain, it's sleet, it's snow. I've walked to the office in like snowstorms before, which is
yeah,
crazy. I mean, that was another reason work from home was such a great thing that came about from the pandemic.
yeah,
Um, you hike to the office if you have to, and that all just
mhm,
takes away time.
yeah,
Whereas staying from home, you can hit the ground running immediately. And so I think organizations and candidates have realized, wow, I got a lot more done than I thought I was going to
yeah.
working from home. I do think that productivity as a team sometimes can suffer if everyone is remote all the time.
Okay.
Um, Now, I've worked with organizations that are 100% remote all the time, and
Mhm.
they're thriving perfectly. I think that that's a balance of finding those types of people that work well from home. And I think that's going to vary depending on work style and personality type.
Mhm.
Um, but I would say most professionals, especially like higher level professionals that have worked in the
Mhm.
office for a long time, they have a base of those skills. So them working from home is okay. Who I'm more worried about, honestly, are the entry level, mid level people that are younger and they haven't had as much time working in the office to build that foundation of office
Yeah.
technology understanding, dealing with other people, having deliverables to make good on over time. I think those are things that were skills that were built up in the office over the years. So that,
Mhm.
yeah, for somebody like me that's been working for 25 years, yeah, sure, I
Mhm.
can work from home. I can duplicate what I did in the
Mhm.
office. What
Mhm.
if you didn't do anything in the office to duplicate at home? You're really kind of flying blind.
Interesting.
And so I think that that's some of the missing piece too, is how we manage some of the people entering the job market and
Mhm.
entering into a work from home environment.
Mhm.
How do we not get their skills lost in the sauce of doing that? um
Yeah, it's
Now
interesting
obviously,
'cause it seems like it's a training thing too, Dana, that you've got to kind of pull them in and I don't know if you have policies or you have procedures and like you mentioned, the office technology. I mean, think about, Slack and some of these platforms that have been designed specifically to navigate a remote workforce. It's pretty
mhm,
interesting.
it's created jobs out of people not working in the office.
Yeah.
It's really wacky. And all of those, tools, Zoom, Slack, like you're mentioning, like all of these sort of inner office softwares, I think are super useful. And they were when we were in the office, and they're
Yeah.
useful now. We just are using them so much more often, I think, because people aren't in the office. But I think it also depends on the position. I think that organizations have to really sit down and think about each individual role. Is it accounting? Is it development? Is it executive
Mhm.
leadership? And really think about, rather than letting the candidate dictate what the schedule is going to be like,
Smart.
or what the work from home options are going to be. Obviously,
Mhm.
we want to listen to the candidate's feedback and what the market, what we're having to match up with candidates in order to attract top talent.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I think we also need to think strategically about, like, can this position survive as 100% work from home? If it's
Mhm.
development and fundraising and it's relationship based, maybe not. If it's accounting and they can do it all from home, maybe that's a job that doesn't require as much in
Yeah.
office work. And being proactive about that in the recruiting process, I think, is helpful because then the candidate understands what is expected of the job and whether that's a fit for their lifestyle. Versus, I think what a lot of people do is they go and find a candidate and then try to make the needs of the job fit what the candidate wants, and then
Yeah.
you're always kind of putting a square peg in a circle hole, like, so it's kind of
Yeah.
tricky.
So let's follow that down a little bit further because there are a lot of pitfalls and there are a lot of concerns with this work from home, especially since we're still trying to figure out how to manage it. And I think we're being, to your point, we're being pushed by the labor force wanting, saying, "I this is what I want."
Right.
Um, what do you see as some of the pitfalls and the concerns? Because one of my big pet peeves is that I feel like people show up on calls, on Zoom, video calls to phone calls, whatever, not as professional as they would be in the office. And I'm wondering if you see that, like, how do we get this balance of professionalism to be maintained no matter where you're working?
Mhm. I think that's a great question. And I think that's a question that a lot of organizations and hiring managers are looking at currently. I think we are in this really, like, this pivot point
Okay.
where now we've understood that work from home does work to a degree. Before, I think everybody thought that it was like, if you're deathly ill, you get to work from home and that's about it, right?
Right.
Now, workers are like, no, we deserve a good work life balance. Now we're going to be able to work from home as needed and more often to really replenish our energy stores, to be able to do our job to the best of our ability. But been at the cost of a few things, like what you're describing, which is the level of professionalism that people are arriving with on, like, on a daily basis. Um, I think personally we're becoming a more casual society. Like, maybe like
Yeah.
just where I'm at in the world. I'm originally from Ohio, and then I've lived in New York for the past 20 years. Maybe your part of the country is a little bit different. I think the South is still a little bit more formal, but here, I think everybody's just becoming more casual, even in public, whether it's in the office. I went to a
Mhm.
client meeting once in Dumbo, which is, very swanky part of downtown Brooklyn. And everybody had their dogs, everybody had sneakers on, so it's just, and that was like 10 years ago. And I was shocked because I worked in
Yeah.
um, a staffing firm in Midtown East in the middle of the city by Grand Central Station. And it was like suits every day. You're like
Yeah.
walking around going to lunch and everybody was in a suit and dressed up. So it was like culture shock almost. And all it was 20 minutes on the subway difference.
Yeah.
So I think
And
that that's part of it too, is that we're combining the work from home revolution, and the
right.
technology has met up with those needs,
Mhm.
and we're becoming a little bit more casual. And so I think organizations have to, and I think in general, when you have somebody working from home as a temporary employee or full time, part of it is setting up those expectations very early on. And I think some organizations just don't know what their expectations are because they haven't had
Yeah.
to deal with this before. So they're not thinking when they hire someone, hey, should we put in together, FAQs, or, part of
Mhm.
our employee contract about, like, particular dressing when on camera, and how your home office has to look, and what backgrounds you can use for Zoom. I think for now it's a free for all. Like, you have
I
some,
agree.
everybody has a different looking office, everybody's got a
Yeah.
different looking home, of course, and different backgrounds and things like that.
Yeah.
Maybe as an organization, if you wanted to start, everybody has the same background. Everybody wears these three different neutral colors for calls. There's certain requirements for Zoom. I think as a leader within a nonprofit, that's where I would go with it, is starting to come up with some best practices for, same way you have a dress code in the office. It may not be the same for work from home, but maybe it's, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
it's specific for the work from home calls.
Yeah.
um and also there might be requirements about, what backgrounds you use, what,
Yeah.
how much you have to be on the call, because sometimes there's issues. Hiring managers say, we have people that are clicking off during the call and then they're off
Yes.
camera for 30 minutes, like, maybe, and people just don't know what
Yeah.
the expectations are. So I think as an
Yeah.
organization, coming up with the managers of the different departments, what
Mhm.
those requirements are, and making sure that they are, symbiotic across all the departments,
Yeah.
and making sure that that information and those requirements are disseminated to your workers ahead of time, versus
Mhm.
letting them do it and then having to correct people. I think it's harder to reel people in.
Yeah.
um
Well, you think about, just think about email signature lines. And when we started using email in American business, what, 20, 25 years ago, it was a basic thing. You had to have it. And I can remember, and it's still the case, there's a corporate signature line. You can't just put up, if your spirit animal's an owl, you can't put an owl logo next to your name. There's a standardized
right,
look, right? And I
right.
feel that it's odd to me that we haven't translated that to something very simple, such as backgrounds and how we present ourselves,
Yeah,
especially in an environment where you might be working with new people, right? They don't, you're getting to meet new folks that might not know your branding or might not know, remember your name or the logo of your organization or whatever. So it just, I appreciate you bringing that up.
That's a great point about branding too, just keeping the message consistent across the
Mhm.
board. And I think, I'm not a marketing expert, but, I do place marketing professionals. And so I think right now, some of the like figures are you have to make contact with a customer 10 to 15 times
Yeah,
before they'll purchase from you
yeah,
once. So
yeah.
it behooves you to have sort of consistent messaging and branding in every aspect, whether that's through virtual meetings or whether that's in person, or if somebody comes to your office and the logo's on the door and it's on all your
Mhm.
pens, it's on all the notebooks. So people leave the office with things that have your name and info and branding and symbols on it. What about having that over Zoom? I think it absolutely couldn't hurt, and it helps keep you at front of mind. So next time they're on the internet and they see your symbol or your logo, they're able to connect that I was just on a call with somebody where I stared at that for, you know what I mean, for a full hour. And now I'm ingratiated in my mind. I really know who this brand is. I really know what this company is.
Right.
I know what they do. Or if it's an organization, I know what they do for the community. This is why I would want to donate to them just from seeing the logo alone. And so I think that those are little ways that we can tweak how to make virtual working work for us a little bit better,
Mhm.
because it works for us in personal ways. I think, how do we now leverage it professionally?
Yeah, I
I
love
think
that
that's
you
going to
said
be
that.
the next phase.
Yeah. So we have like literally only minutes left, and my time with you always goes so fast. But I want to talk about like some tips if you're managing. If you're on the other side and you've got a team and you're like, holy moly, I've got to manage them, but I can't just walk over to their cubicle or desk or whatever office. What are some part-time labor issues that we should be thinking about?
Sure. Oversight is, I think, one of the biggest issues with work from home candidates and
Okay.
work from home assignments is that organizations and hiring managers are just having trouble keeping track of what that person is doing from home and feeling comfortable that that person is working to their capacity and doing things correctly. And I think some of it just has to be some expectations put together early on or before the assignment starts, as to here are the you can work from home, you have flexibility. Here are the hours I do need you online though. This is when I need you to be able to be responsive to me.
Okay.
Um, During the hours from like noon to 5 every day, if I email you, I want to be able to get a response within an hour or two. I'm looking for, your availability during these particular hours, but other than that, you can certainly work from home, with some variation,
Mhm.
do human things, go to the doctor, grab lunch, those
Mhm.
kinds of things that work from home candidates are looking for that flexibility with. I think there's a medium in between, but hiring
Mhm.
managers monitoring the people working from home is really tricky because I think sometimes they lose sight of somebody's working from home because they're busy doing their own job. And then they go back 3 days later and the person working from home hasn't done what they needed them to do, and they
Uh-huh.
didn't know because they're not in the office next to each other. And so I do think that that is some of it, but I think that that is something that hiring managers have to do a better job of setting those expectations up early and thinking about ways to strategize how they are going to monitor
Mhm.
this person. Don't wait till the person's halfway through the project to start trying to backtrack monitoring. You
Mhm.
need to think about how you're going to do that on a daily basis before you've even hired the person, and sharing those expectations with the person you're hiring before they start.
Right. And we have a comment that just came in too, that I think you have to look at time zones. I think you have to
Mm,
realize that depending on where you are, if you're doing international work, I mean, we have four time zones in this country. We have three official, but
mhm,
we have four. When you think about the mountain states, that's tough. That's a tough thing. So we need to be thinking about that as well. Dana Scurlock, wow, what a treasure you are. I always learn so much from you. Dana Scurlock, Director of Recruitment at our friends over at Staffing Boutique. You can learn more about the team at staffingboutique.org. One of the things I love about this company is that from the moment I met you all, you have been at the forefront of, changing so much, moving and being really receptive to looking out at the landscape of employment and labor in our country and in this sector, and then trying to figure out what's going to work and what's not. And so it's been a really interesting journey to be with you. And so thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
It is. It's really cool. I'm now I have a different view on working from home. So thank you very much. You have helped me to figure it out.
That's amazing. And I think it's going to continue to evolve for all of us too as time goes on.
I think you're right. I think that's the thing. I think that's where, our technology and our management skills have to meet up, because
Hmm.
this isn't just a crisis environment. This is a new path forward. And so we need to understand it and be more receptive, like you said, to it. We're always receptive to our presenting sponsors. They include Bloomerang American Nonprofit Academy, our friends at Staffing Boutique, JMT Consulting, Interim Executives Academy, Your Part-Time Controller, and Fundraisers Friday. Dana, we say this message at the end of every show, and to me, it means something completely new and fresh today when we're thinking about working from home. And the message is simple: stay well so you can do well.